What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Geeks Vegas Lines daily fantasy football and betting lines breakdown, brought to you by Overlay DFS, home of progressive jackpot fantasy sports, and of course, Fantasy Draft, the home of rake-free DFS. What is up, Season Long Sez? Welcome back to the show.
Dude, there's a lot of player movement today. I'm excited to see how this affects the Vegas lines, if at all, and certainly how it affects DFS. A couple receivers and certainly a couple running backs that I can't wait to hear you talk about. Oh, hi. How you doing, guys?
Hey, there we go. A rare week where we've got trades happening. We've got season-long injuries. We've got players going into IR. There's a lot to talk about. But helping us break it down as well is the sports betting GOAT himself, John Alessia, a.k.a. Statsational. Welcome to the show, John.
How's it going, man?
I'm feeling good, man. We were just talking off air about some of these prop bets on the Draftkings app that I was looking at last night. Like, man, where's John here to freaking crush Draftkings and put them out of business with this bet? I was trying to figure out what the max bets are on those things.
Yeah, those are pretty good. Those are pretty good bets for DFS guys or for fantasy guys in general.
Are those prop bets, is that the softest thing going in sports gambling right now? Is that about the softest, most beatable component for NFL?
I haven't tackled them yet, so I can't really say if they are or they aren't. But just from the ones that you were rattling off to me, that they didn't seem too accurate. They didn't seem too good. They seemed very beatable.
You know, one of the things I talk about, and I'm not a sports gambling, expert or savant by any stretch. It's new. It wasn't around in New York, but as I was breaking down the game last night, the Jets game, and today is Tuesday for anybody listening to this later in the week. It's Tuesday, and one of the things I like to look at are all the props on the sports books, and the Fanduel and Draftkings sports books have a lot of player props that you can't vote the under, or you can't bet the under, only the over, and I don't believe those, right? I only believe in a true market. But then I go to this fantasy points prop, and I'm seeing like Sam Darnold, 15.5 points. What? Robbie Anderson, who was going to be covered by Stephon Gilmore, 12.5 fantasy points. I'm like, this fucking guy's not catching any passes tonight. Come on. So it seems so obvious. And I was saying it on the pod. I was like, geez, I wish I'm thinking about driving to Jersey right now and making some free money. I wish I had seen him earlier in the day and take that trip, pop into Trader Joe's afterwards since I'm already there. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yeah, now I got a bunch of friends in New Jersey. I'm gonna have to look those over now.
Make some calls. Yeah. All right, but anyway, we are back for week 8 of the daily fantasy football / NFL sports gambling season. And Alan, why don't you take us away and let's get started looking at this very interesting week of NFL football with so many injuries and so many trades. We're gonna really have to wrap our heads around all of this.
Okay, we're in no particular order. These are just games. I pulled them at the ones I wanted to talk about in the order I want to talk about. So try to keep up, guys, for those of you at home. All right, Arizona is going to go into New Orleans. New Orleans is giving 9.5 points. Interesting. It's been talked about all over TV that Teddy Bridgewater is 5-0. Obviously, Drew Brees is getting his job back the minute he comes back. But we spoke about it a little bit last week, John, that Teddy Bridgewater, the backup QB, is always usually worth about 4 to 6 points, and then that gap sort of closes as they become more accustomed with the offense and comfortable. How do you see this going? The Saints right now are on a roll. This seems like a lot of points, but I would imagine that the public is all over the Saints.
Public is on the Saints. 72% of the money and the tickets, exactly the same. We did speak about that when you have the quarterback change. Or an injury at the quarterback. And in this particular case, it was about a 7-point move, but that's changed quite a bit as Bridgewater has played well. These are the type of things that you could take advantage of if you have a position or you have a feel. We used to call it an axe in when you were trading. So if you had an axe or you had a view on something, if this was something, it wasn't something I particularly had that view. I wasn't a big Teddy Bridgewater guy, but if you had that view, this is something that you could have pounded out and been betting the Saints all the way through. There's opportunities like that from the beginning of the season, during the season, where the market just doesn't get it right. They don't always have it right. Eventually they'll catch up. But what we're seeing here was, there was definitely an overreaction to the Drew Brees move.
Just off the top of your head, if this was Drew Brees' first game back off the injury, what do you think the line would be? Would it be 10.5? Would it be about the same? I mean, just off the top of your head, we're not holding you to any mathematical number.
I would say it's probably at this point, it's probably I think it's still 3 to 4 points. So I think they're still going to, with Drew Brees, they're going to give him another field goal. I don't think it's dropped to the point where they're just about the same. But I think they'll give Brees at least a field goal over Bridgewater.
Okay, so you'd see it as a little more like a 12.5.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Geek, there should be some fantasy goodness here. Now, we were all aboard the Kyler Murray train. He had a down week last week. I'm not deterred at all. I mean, one bad game in 7 is certainly is not bad, especially for a rookie quarterback. This might be a good week to go back to him, I'm thinking, since the down week, people are going to be off him. I really like what I see out of him from his mobility perspective. Start with the Arizona side. Who's playable along with Kyler Murray?
All right. Well, that's the thing. So why did he have a bad week? That's the question we want to ask ourselves. And the reality was the Giants' defense was so bad against the run that Chase Edmonds just was trotting into the end zone every time they got close to it. Very similar to last night where the Patriots scored, 33 points in the game, but Tom Brady wasn't really forced to throw touchdowns because Sony Michel was smashing in all the touchdowns from the goal line. So it wasn't that Murray had this bad game. He was 14 for 21 and he completed his passes, did a lot of yardage, but the running game did all the work, right? Or the defense did a little bit of work too in the running game. You're not going to run against the Saints defense successfully. So if they're going to score in this game, it's going to come off the arm of Kyler Murray or the legs of Kyler Murray, most likely. So yeah, you could go back to him here. It's a good spot. I don't love games at New Orleans for fantasy scores. That's not where I'm searching for my fantasy goodness. And I do think we can pretty much avoid the David
David Johnson. David Johnson, I think he's not even the right fit for that system. I think what we're going to see over the next 2 games is Chase Edmonds is the RB1. They're not. I mean, David Johnson, when he's healthy, he's not going to be kicked off taken out of the game.
They're not going to kick Chase out of the game.
Yeah, but I think their roles are going to reverse. I think Chase Edmonds is going to be the 1A, and I know it's hard to fathom because we remember that 2016 season. But I can't think of a worse investment in fantasy than David Johnson the last 3 years.
I mean, in fairness, when he's been out there, he's put up his numbers too. So I'm not going to knock David Johnson, what he's done.
Last year season long, you didn't get return on your investment.
Last year was and he's hurt a lot. He seems to be shop worn a little bit. He's getting hurt a lot. So, but I mean, either way, I'm not playing running backs against the Saints. I just don't.
Fair
so
enough.
That whole question, we don't even have to worry about it this week. I know Chase had a great week. I hope a lot of people chase. Little Chase. I'm not going to chase Chase.
Stop stuttering.
I'm not chasing Chase, man. I'm not chasing Chase.
All right, John, did you have any Latavius Murray in your lineups, John, last week?
So my initial run through, I had something around 17% Murray, and I said, this is crazy. Like, I can't play this much Murray against the Bears, and I just totally dropped it. I just totally dropped it down.
Cognitive bias.
Yeah. So if I just let the computer do it, I would have been okay there. But I try to use my brain, and when I do that, I usually get myself in trouble. So it was a wacky week.
Kevin, that's going to go in my quote book that John just said. When I try to use my brain, I get myself in trouble. I'm going to make that T-shirt.
That's cognitive bias, man, and you don't want to use your brain. By the way, I just want to make a point that the DFS Army Domination Station, if you were running it for Fanduel, would have given you 100% exposure to Latavius Murray and a shitload of Marvin Jones Jr. It was crazy how spot on the projections were on those 2 guys this week, but a lot of it just had to do with the price. In fairness, it wasn't that the projection was crazy. It's just Lats Murray was so cheap for the volume, and so was Marvin Jones Jr. and 5,600. So they were all over the place. But as far as me, I had about 20%, and I used him in cash.
All right, sum up this game. We spent a little too much time on this game. So Lat Murray, are you going back to that again?
Assuming Kamara. All right, so let me just get into it. Assuming Kamara is out, we're going right back to Lats Murray here. He's in a better spot at home. Again, there is no backup plan. There's no other running back on the team to take any kind of touches. Love Lats Murray here against this Cardinals defense. Hell yeah. Michael Thomas, probably one of the best plays on the slate.
Automatic every week, this guy.
Yeah. Without other wide receivers on these Saints, they're just going to keep going to Michael Thomas. He's still going to get his 10, 11 targets every single week. Even for the pay up options, you can't count on Julio getting 11 targets. You can't count on Hopkins getting 11 targets. You can't count on any of these guys. The only guy you can count on to get 11 targets if you want to pay up is going to be Michael Thomas. And that's it out of this game. I'm over the pass catchers from the Cardinals. Done with it.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, I'm sure, and maybe if his price is right, is a decent wide receiver 3, but really no upside. I mean, I'm happy to have him in my season long league because everyone else hates him. But I think that puts a bow on this game. John,
wait, I have one. I have one more point to make on this one. Larry Johnson is fool's gold.
Larry Johnson. Who the hell is Larry Johnson?
Larry Fitzgerald. I'm sorry. Okay. Larry Fitzgerald is fool's gold. Now I'm trying to get the technical name for fool's gold, and of course I don't know it. It's like called Creolite, or there's a name for it. I wanted to call him Creolite. That's going to be his new nickname, or whatever the hell the name is. Somebody in the comments, man, hit me up with what the actual material that's fool's gold is.
You know what's interesting is that you mean like cubic zirconia?
Pyrite. No, pyrite is what it's called. Pyrite.
Okay, it's like cubic zirconia for diamonds, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's called pyrite. It's a material that you find in. It looks like gold, but it's not. Pyrite.
All right.
Larry Pyrite Fitzgerald.
John, some changes over in Denver as they go in to visit Indianapolis. Indianapolis, who looks like the second best team in the AFC, is going to be given 6 to Denver, who will now be without Emmanuel Sanders. I know wide receivers generally don't affect the line too much, but it seems like he was a pretty big part of that offense, and Joe Flacco did look for him when he got in trouble. How do you see this all shaking out? First, obviously, talk about the betting perspective, where the money's going, but maybe I'm a fool. I'm not looking at the number. I'm looking at the team, but how can you not play Indy right now?
Yeah, so the money obviously is going on Indianapolis. The public, I think everyone got a good look at that Denver Kansas City game. We were actually in the middle of a podcast when Mahomes went down, and I had Kansas City bet in that game. Geek said, "Boy, I don't like that with no Mahomes." I didn't particularly care for it either, but boy, that second half that I got to watch, that Denver offense just looked atrocious. Troy Aikman, I think, was holding back as much as he could on how bad he wanted to knock that offense. So
why do they hold back, by the way? Why do you think the announcers hold back? That's why I like Booger McFarland. I like Tony Romo. Even if I don't always agree with their takes, they just go at them. They speak the truth of what's on the field.
Well, Aikman was actually, I was being I was kind of joking half-heartedly there, because Aikman made a couple of comments there that you don't normally hear from broadcasters about. Yeah, I was being a little facetious, but he came out and he's like, "I don't want to knock Joe here, but there's no life. He's got no life. He doesn't look like he wants to be out there. The team didn't look like they had any life." So his comments, along with the nation being able to watch that game, and then Indianapolis playing the way they have. Yeah, it's no shocker here. But these are those games, when you bet, they look so obvious. You're like, well, Indianapolis at home, Denver looks so terrible. Not saying that I like Denver just quite yet, but when they're so obvious, you need to take a second look at it.
Yeah, sometimes it's so obvious is the obvious. But yeah, I mean, nothing's 100%. It is the NFL. If you were 100%, you would liquidate all your assets and go and make a bet on Indianapolis, which you would never do. Geek, right now, again, Jacoby Brissett seems to be, playing above expectations. I think he's actually a really good quarterback. And waiver wire gem this week, it seems like he's emerged as the number 2 wide receiver. Pascal, man, this guy Pascal is a tough player. He's only in his second year. I think he went to Old Dominion. I looked a little bit back at his college tape. This guy was dominating just like he is in the NFL. This is someone that nobody saw coming, had a few flash games last year. Can we actually play him? His salary has to be depressed.
It's not expensive on either site, and obviously he's doing a lot of work out there, man. He's not only doing the work, but he's getting 7 or 8 targets per game, which is more important than necessarily the results, is the volume component of it. So he's out there doing this work, and quite honestly, you look at T.Y. Hilton, big play guy, but Zach Pascal has been kind of matching him for a little bit cheaper. So yes, he's playable. Is he somebody I want to play in my main pool of players this week? Probably not. I'd probably kind of fit him in or squeeze him into lineups based around Jacoby Brissett at this point. I'm not quite sure I want to let him go as a standalone piece, but an argument can be made for that, especially on a week like this with not a lot of value floating around. Obviously, T.Y. Hilton is back in play. This game does seem like it's going to lean more towards just a Marlon Mack smash game potentially, because this Broncos team just has been really bad against the run. And, last week aside, the Chiefs don't really have running backs that they use, but over throughout the season, they've been pretty bad against the run, and that's been a great way to attack them. And I think that the Colts are a team that will lean on the run if they can. They can't always do it. They have to go to the arm of Brissett, but if they can lean on the run, they will. So, more of a FanDuel play for me. I don't like Marlon Mack on DraftKings very much, but he's certainly in play. And, Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton, sure. And now with Manny Sanders gone, maybe a little Deshaun Hamilton for minimum salary on DraftKings as a PPR play. I don't know. Why not?
Yeah, I like Deshaun Hamilton. He was a pretty good pass catcher. I believe he went to Penn State, and he was coming on a little bit last year as well. He got buzz killed when Emmanuel Sanders' injury had the miraculous Achilles recovery. Our boy Hoyce Freeman had a little bit of a pretty good ball game last week. I still like both running backs. Lindsey obviously looks better, but can you even think about playing either of the runners in this game, or is it just stay away? It's
I'm not feeling it on the Broncos side. This Colts defense is pretty freaking good against the run. It's a good defense overall, not a great, but a good defense overall, and they're good against the run. And like John said a few minutes ago, like I don't know. I just don't want to invest too deeply in the Broncos at all. And I really want running backs from teams that are favored. You saw what happened last night and what happens every single week. You want favored running backs because when that team goes down, they're just not going to lean on the running game at all late. So, if my expectation is the Colts are going to win here, I'm not really getting super excited about Hoyce Freeman or Lindsey, but it does look like people are just misconstruing these games a little bit. It remains a 50-50 split between these two guys. Don't get excited that one week one guy did more and the other week the other guy did more. It's still a 50-50 split with Hoyce and Lindsey.
John, you own any Cortland Sutton in any of your season-long fantasy leagues? Is it just wheels up for him right now?
No, I do. Yeah, I do have Cortland Sutton, and it is a keeper league, so I'm fingers crossed here. I think that was he's going to be one of my. I'd never seem to get a good keeper in that particular league, so he might be one of my better ones. Yeah,
that's a good keeper. Hey guys, one of our sponsors here, OverlayDFS.com, the home of Stardom, Situm, Progressive Jackpots. Tired of having to pick the perfect player at every position in order to win your salary cap DFS? Tired of having your salary cap league out of the money in the first 5 minutes? Introducing the new daily fantasy game where the pros with 150 lineups do not have the advantage. OverlayDFS.com has a new revolutionary start-sit game for fantasy sports, the destination for the single-entry GPP. Here's how you play. You make 12 start-sit decisions from the 30 matchups that they present to you. A win, a loss, or a tie will be awarded to the overall record for each decision. Records in the top 10% of users win 9 times your buy-in. A 12-0 record will win the Progressive Guaranteed Jackpot. All matchups are player versus player who will have more fantasy points. So in a given week, you can go 8-4, and that's usually good enough to cash. Sometimes it's 7-5, and in a tougher week, it might be 9-3. This week, some of the matchups that I saw up there were Deshaun Watson versus Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray versus Teddy Bridgewater, and I thought a really interesting one was Josh Jacobs versus Derrick Henry. John, you jumped on this week and had some interesting results. Talk about when you played OverlayDFS.com. What were the results?
I did really well. I played a 4x4, so if you won, that was you had to win it out of the 4 players, and you win. I think that one I was 8-2. So those you do just 10 picks. Mm-hmm. And so I went 8-2 with that. And I played some of the other ones, progressives, which you would liken to a GPP type of thing, which you were talking about, where you play 12 different matchups. And I played a couple of those and cashed in one of them, I believe, with an 8-4. So yeah.
Hey, Kevin, is it any surprise to you that John, his first time he played, broke the game?
John is a game breaker. The man has made a career out of figuring out how to beat a game. I mean, if he's not beating that game,
I like the game because I have that game. I have really good. I had a really good idea about it going in, about the strategy involved there, and then I'm not sure I want to give too much away and take away.
Well, not for free, at least. We're not giving that away for free.
Not until you get one of those progressive jackpots in your pocket. When the progressive jackpot goes back down to like 5K or whatever it starts at, then you can give out.
Well, I'll tell you this: if they come, if anyone asks for my opinion in the Slack rooms, I'll be happy to tell them what I did.
The object is to stay in this top 10% so you can get 9 times your buy-in. If it's your lucky night and you go 12-0 in the $109 game, you'll take home the progressive jackpot. Entry fees start as low as $2.50. If no one hits the perfect 12-0 progressive jackpot, it'll keep rolling until someone wins. Go to overlaydfs.com now and check that out. All right. We talked about it. We enjoyed it. I'm going to continue to play. John's going to continue to break the bank over there. The next game that we're talking about, Philly going into Buffalo. Buffalo is now a favorite against the Eagles, who have not looked too good. John, what are the bettors thinking about this? This has got to be really confusing. As a square bettor myself, I would think that Philly might be the play here.
Yeah, the public is kind of 50-50 on this one right now. So it's interesting. Yeah, I would have thought Philly would have been getting a little bit more action. I just want to talk about the total too, because we forgot to do that on a couple of the earlier ones.
What is the total?
So the total on this game is 43. It's up from 41.5. And that also is kind of close to a 50-50 split on the money, just slightly more on the under, even though the line has gone up from 41.5 up to 43. So, it's interesting. I sent out in the rankings, I wrote the article, wrote an article this morning on that, and Buffalo just seems like a very overrated team at 5-1. And I've heard that from just people, lay people just kind of watching the games. I don't know how you guys feel. But when you look at it, generally when I see teams in my rankings that their record is better than where I have them ranked, it usually has to do with turnovers. And once I put turnovers in there, everything sort of evens out and it becomes very linear. That's not the case for Buffalo. They're actually minus in the turnover margin, which is interesting. So it's been a case of where they've played really weak teams closely, and that's why their ranking is so low.
Do you remember a couple of years ago when they made the playoffs? They were the first ever team to make the playoffs with a negative plus minus rate with a point. What's the point differential? They had a negative point differential, and that
scoring margin. Yeah, the scoring margin. Yeah,
that had never happened before in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, scoring margin is a huge indicator, by the way. I know it seems very logical. You're like, oh, well, it's but it's a huge indicator, and not just in the NFL. When you're looking, especially when you get to the playoffs, look for teams that to win the Super Bowl, teams with a high scoring margin. And again, it seems very logical. Also in college basketball, which I'm not going to go off on a tangent, but college basketball, when you get to the tournament, look for scoring margin when you're picking out your teams in the tourney.
That's interesting. That I needed some edge because I've been doing the NCAA tournament for 25 years. I've only won it once. It's regression has to be coming. I have to be a winner soon. Geek, from a DFS perspective here, Philly just looks slow and sluggish right now. No speed. I just don't know what. I mean, you'd think a 33-year-old Deshaun Jackson being out, but that really was the code to opening up their whole offense. Is there anyone that you could play from that side? And when you would talk about Buffalo, what the heck happened to our Devin Singletary? Hit it all. Tell me all the players that I should be looking to play in my cash and my GPPs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here. So to start with, just in the running game for both teams, this is an ugly one. You don't want to mess with it, right? So on the Buffalo side, I don't know what happened. Devin Singletary got hurt, and Frank Gore is old. I think eventually, as I said in the beginning of the season, Singletary was hurt. They gave Gore some looks. He looked okay for a few games. This is going to be Singletary's backfield because Gore is old and he sucks. That's as simple as that. He's old. He's 36 years old and he's not good. On the Eagles side, they still can't get their shit together in terms of the Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard split that they have going on right now, where they really should give Sanders more. I was expecting him to get some of that Sproles work. They just don't seem to be throwing the football to the running back at all, instead of doing the thing where they're kind of treating Miles Sanders as a pass catcher. So the whole backfield situation is weird. Of the whole group, I think I guess. Miles Sanders the best out of this for this week's game. But number one, you don't play running backs against the Eagles. You just don't. So unless it's Zeke, you generally don't want to play a running back against the Eagles. They're very good at stopping the run. The way to attack this team is via the pass. So that's very convenient. It helps Josh Allen. It helps Sheriff John Brown. It helps even Cole Beasley, I guess. And that offense for the Bills is so concentrated amongst those three guys that it really helps us as DFS players know who to target in this game. On the Eagles side, man, Alshon Jeffrey's been doing fine. He's fairly cheap, I guess. But, man, this whole offense, I mean, Zach Ertz, did they forget he's there? I don't know why they don't throw.
Well, Dallas Goedert is coming on a little bit now. And, even in the preseason, we pushed in our season-long rankings, we pushed Zach Ertz down a little bit. And this is what I think it is. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, Deshaun Jackson not being there has not opened up that part of the field where Zach Ertz was making a living right in the middle of the field. In the past, when you had somebody flying over the top, it really, it shifted coverage that way and it opened the field. They need him back more than just, again, not from fantasy, but they need him back to unlock the offense a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Hollins has been a bust. Arcega-Whiteside just isn't there yet.
Yeah,
Aguilar is a bust. I mean, Aguilar had a couple. He's a fucking bust. He's a terrible player. So, this pass catching group is just uninspiring. And Alshon Jeffrey, I'm sorry, he's not been good. He hasn't been very good. He is a possession receiver. He's a notch above, a jag, but not much more than that for me.
Yeah. And then on the Buffalo side, I still like Josh Allen from a fantasy perspective. But, you're going to get your up games, your down games. It's tough to tell. Moving along, next game, John, is Carolina going to the undefeated San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are going to lay 5.5. The total is 41 in that game. This seems like a slugfest. I mean, this one is going to be an awesome real-life football game. What do you see from a betting perspective? I mean, 5.5 feels like a lot of points.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of points here, and the public agrees. Public's actually on the dog, which is always interesting. So they like Carolina. Allen's been playing well, plus 5.5. The public's taking it 62%. It's about the same tickets to money. They're both around that 60% level. On the total, hasn't moved much, 41.5. So, like you said, totally anticipating this being a defensive battle. No reason really not to. San Francisco is just winning it old school with the run. The public does like the game on the over, though, the 41.5. They like that at 72%, but the ticket money is coming in kind of 50-50. So we're seeing, I should say the tickets are about 50-50, but there's more money coming in on the over at 72%. So possibility there that we have some big money coming in, or certainly a lot more money coming in and bigger bets on the Carolina game going over. So the 41.5. But yeah, it's interesting, the Cam Newton situation. I think they're in a situation where they have to keep playing Allen until they see a sign of, or he's just that. If he has a bad game, and this could be it against this defense, it's tough to put Cam in there while Allen is playing well. At least if he has a absolute horrific performance, it's easier to make that move. But I think the smart move is to just kind of keep holding him out and only put him back in there if Allen just shows a really, at least one bad game.
Right. And I think that really will that's smart, because now Kyle Allen knows the pressure's on, and let's see how he performs with a superstar quarterback getting ready to breathe down his neck and get back in that game. And if he still performs under that kind of pressure, I mean, if somebody came to your job that you had replaced and they just sat there watching everything you did, you would be a little nervous too. And if you still perform under those conditions, you deserve to stay. Geek, is Christian McCaffrey, right, even against a tough defense, is he auto play?
In your season-long league, he is, but this is the most important, or one of the biggest decision points that DFSers are going to have to make this week, right? He's Christian McCaffrey. He's the man who puts up 50 fantasy points in a game regularly. So what are we supposed to do? Most expensive guy taking on what I believe is the best defense in the league? Yeah. I don't know that this is a game where I expect a 9,200 DraftKings Christian McCaffrey to pay off in that salary. I don't expect it. So I think you have to fade Christian McCaffrey, as disgusting as that feels. And John, I mean, I'd like your opinion on this sort of situation, but how do you play Christian McCaffrey for that salary facing this defense?
Yeah, and I've been on McCaffrey. He's probably been my highest owned guy more than definitely been my highest owned guy week in, week out, more than anybody. But this is not the week that you want to be hammering CMC. So I'm going to be with you on that one. I think San Francisco just has the ability to shut him down. And there's going to be way better options out there at a cheaper price. So yeah, I'm not high on the CMC this week.
Again, I'm playing him in my season-long league.
Oh, yeah, you never sit those guys, but yeah,
I'm playing him. So for the rest of this game, listen, if you made a policy of I don't play offensive players against San Francisco this season, if that was your thing, and you also said, and I don't use offensive players against the Patriots this year, and you just said, that's my policy and I'm sticking with it, you'll do better. Like, that's a good policy to have. So for me, that's going to be my policy. Wipe out the entirety of Carolina. Again, going to play some of these guys in my season-long league because I have to. But, I mean, I hope that for Kyle Allen, they're not judging him on this game because this doesn't project very well. Now, on the other side of the field, because that's where the interest is going to really be, if there is any at all. Now we've got, I don't even know if Emmanuel Sanders is going to be, counting in the player pool this week. I'm going to say no.
He's going to be active. I'll tell you that.
I think he'll be active, but I'm saying the sites, I don't believe you'll be able to play him at all. So I think
why do they do that?
Because he's already in here as a player for San Francisco. They can't change the pool once the contest began.
You mean as Denver? He's in there for Denver.
For Denver, he's in the pool for Denver, or he's not in the pool. Either way, they don't like to mess with that. So we're probably not going to get a chance to play him either way. Which leaves us with basically George Kittle as a potential play. We could talk about the two running backs for San Francisco. Always play a bull, but I really want to get a deal on these guys. Their salaries came down a little bit. I think Coleman is the better of the two. He continues to get goal line work. I don't want to judge them too harshly based on the sort of soggy bowl that they did in Washington with a field as disgusting as it was. The only thing more dysfunctional than the Washington Redskins is their field crew who couldn't get the fucking water out of that stadium to the
Dude, that was a crazy monsoon, though. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. I mean, John, didn't that remind you when you watched football in the 80s and in the early 90s, like those games that were just like that all the time? That's what it felt like.
Yeah, but this is modern times where you never see that.
Yeah, usually they have pretty good drainage underneath a lot of these stadiums now. It kind of sucks it all out. Yeah, it was definitely different.
And I don't mean to interrupt your flow on that, but isn't it funny that the game was 9-0 and the Redskins still covered without even having?
That was the second time I posted that. That was the second time it's happened.
Yeah.
I believe it happened in 2007. There was a 3-0 game with Pittsburgh. I'm forgetting the two teams, but it was a Pittsburgh game. Might have been Miami 3-0. So the second time a team did not score and covered the game.
Yeah, and by the way, the takeaway from that shouldn't be, oh, the Redskins defense is great now, or, oh, San Francisco couldn't operate in rainy conditions. It was, what the fuck is up with San Francisco's offense? They are pretty bad. Like, the fact that the defense is clearly what is special about this team. Their offense is still taking some time to gel. So, nothing excites me here. I do think Tevin Coleman's priced fairly on DraftKings and Fanduel to the point where he's most likely to get a touchdown between him and Breida. George Kittle's going to be in play every single week, but outside of that, get me out of here. 41-point total. Let's avoid it.
Yeah, that with the low total, that makes sense. Hey guys, our friends over at Fantasy Draft, the only rake-free daily fantasy site, brings the heat again with its $500,000 guaranteed rake-free contest, the Hooter Main Event. This is the largest and only rake-free contest of its kind you will find for Week 8. And remember, only on Fantasy Draft are we 100% of entry fees paid to the contest winners. Sign up at fantasydraft.com with referral code ARMY, that's ARMY, and you'll get a free 7-day trial membership. What's really cool about Fantasy Draft, and that it's, you hear them advertise everywhere, but no one really is like taking a minute to acknowledge the rake free and the subscription model. Now, people say, hey, why should I pay a subscription? Because right now we're inundated with subscriptions for this and subscriptions for that. And what I try to do is eliminate all my subscriptions except for the key ones. This is one of those key ones. paying a small cover charge to have unlimited fantasy games. Seems like, I mean, it seems too good to be true. I mean, what am I missing here?
All right, let me explain. Let me explain here, because I'll give you a perfect analogy. Some people buy shit on their credit card, right? And then they just leave that debt out there. And then it's like, I paid $20, right? Other people realize, I'm not going to pay no 18% premium on that's the highest interest. Somebody give me 18% interest on something. I'll be the happiest guy in the world. I'll lend you all the money you want. So the people who like to just pay the minimum on their credit card, they play on DraftKings and Fanduel. They get it. You know, they want to play over there. That's cool. But if you're the kind of person that pays off your credit card because you don't want to pay 18% interest, even though you know, like, it hurts to pay, that's what this is. You got to be crazy. First of all, you have to be crazy to pay 15% every time you enter a contest when there's another place that gives it for free. Like, the contest structure on Fantasy Draft is better than the structure on any other site. Almost every contest is structured exactly how I, as a player, would want it. Not too top heavy. The size of the contest is about the right size. You have 50 to 150 people in it, 300. They have a big contest every single week. Everything about that site is really done well. The only reason people don't play it is because A, they're too lazy, or they're not sharp enough to understand that they're paying a 15% premium every time they play on FanDuel and DraftKings. So you guys want to keep doing that? That's cool. But I think as a community, and there's a reason why we take this beyond the ad read. It's awesome that they sponsor this podcast. But I think that as a community of DFS players, of people who love this stuff, we want to support the model of no rake. It will allow you to play for a longer time without depositing as much. I mean, I don't know. Or when you're winning, you will win more. So everything about it is better. And the $3.99 they charge for, or $4.99 they charge for $3,000 worth of entries, is crazy low. I don't know the exact numbers, to be quite honest. I'm just surprised.
It's like buying like a cup of coffee like once a month. I mean, literally for the price of a cup of coffee, which you probably buy anyway when you sit down to go through your fantasydraft.com numbers. I mean, it literally pays for itself.
It beyond pays for itself. The same amount of gameplay on DraftKings or FanDuel will cost you $4.50, and they charge like $14.99 for it. The difference is astounding. As I said, I'm shocked that they're able to have this as their business model, but I think the best thing we could do as a DFS community is have more people there supporting it so that it lasts.
John, Oakland is going to go into Houston this week. Houston's laying the 6.5. The total is 51. Nice high total on this game. Houston lost Will Fuller for extended period of time. I think it might even be, I wouldn't bet on him coming back anytime soon. I didn't see if there was a note about IR, but Kenny Stills, one of my favorite players in the NFL, steps right into that role without blinking an eye, 100 yards plus. I don't think they lose anything. Sure, Will Fuller is a premium speed guy, but Kenny Stills runs the whole route tree. I think Houston's going to run a little bit better. I love Houston in this one. I know 6.5 is a lot because the Oakland Raiders are sneaky. What's actually going on in the betting market with this game, which I'm looking forward to?
That's another one that people are a little bit confused. So the market is the money is about 50-50 coming in on this. It hasn't moved off the 6.5 since we opened. There's more tickets coming in on the Houston side, though. And so we're seeing a little bit the ticket sizes on the Oakland side are going to be a little bit higher. So that could tell you a little something about where some of the sharper people are putting their money. If you go to the total, that's, this is going to be one of the higher totals of the week. So it's going to be a DFS type of stacking game that people are going to be interested in. And it's gone up from 48 to 51. 79% of the money is on the over. The tickets kind of mirror that. So yeah, this is a game I spoke about it in my article briefly this morning that, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this game, especially with Matt Ryan. I guess we'll talk about that later. Probably not playing. This might be one of the more stackable type of matchups going on this week.
So, Geek, when you talk about this one, I mean, over on the Oakland side, I would imagine that tight end one, Darren Waller, who is not even, he may qualify at tight end, but he's really just like a dominant wide receiver at this point. Is his price prohibitive to playing, or can you just play? He gets his every single week.
It's amazing how consistent they've been with giving him 8 targets almost every single game or more. Waller's going to be just fine. He's not too expensive. The price came up a little bit this week, but What I wanted to get to, because you mentioned Kenny Stills, like when you're making your cash lineup this week, like Kenny Stills is probably the first name that you're going to click on. It's almost an auto click because he's coming in salaried about where he's been all year, but now he's stepping up into the Will Fuller role. And he was already kind of splitting that role with Fuller when they were out there, which was eating into both of their sort of volume. Now, when he's in the full Will Fuller role, and you know that this team, Houston, is very formulaic with how they approach their offense. It's very much a formula. You see the same thing. Kenny Stills is going to be over the top. He's going to be doing the Will Fuller things. You know, you're going to have Kiki Kuti.
But he could also run the full route tree. I mean, Kenny Stills is a great intermediate receiver too.
He has the skill set to do it all, but I mean, he's going to get the premium deep ball targets for this team. That's the role that they've had for Fuller. You've seen Fuller drop 3 or 4 touchdowns, you know, over the course of the last couple of weeks. I don't think Kenny Stills drops those. So I think he's a premium play here in all formats, under 5K. I just love that play. This game is the game where you want to really get a lot. For this week, this is one of the most exciting games of the week. You know, both running backs are in play here. Josh Jacobs getting the full workload. I don't love Jacobs as much. And John, I might be a fish, but I'd be all over Houston here. I think they're gonna I think 6 points is not enough in a home game. I think Houston's defense will be solid as well and will limit the production from Oakland here. Oakland doesn't really have much in terms of a series of offensive weapons. Again, you mentioned Waller, but outside of Waller, it's just Waller and Josh Jacobs and a bunch of unknown quantities. I mean, this Trevor Davis, 2 targets last week, not enough. So, you know, I don't know who's catching passes outside of Waller for these guys. And Houston's good against the run. So it's a tricky one. I actually think Carlos Hyde is in play as well. And DeAndre Hopkins, as always, is always there doing his thing.
Yeah, I mean, they traded for Zay Jones. Oakland did. He was inactive last week. I still believe in him. He was a 2nd-round pick. I'm not saying he's going to come in and break the bank, but he's just someone to keep an eye on. I could see, you know, they saw. It doesn't matter if we like Zay Jones. Oakland does. They traded for him, so I think that's always important. You know, and Kenny Stills is you know, from a season-long perspective, I've advised people he's put 2 hands and go grab. I mean, whatever you can. It's not often wide receivers come up mid-season that are waiver wire worthy more than a spec play. He's an all-in play. I love that one so much. John, we're going back to London this week. Cincinnati going to at Rams, even though it's at London. Thank God it's not a tea and crumpets game. It is at 1:00. So Rams are going to lay 13 on the neutral ground. Over under is 48.5. A little bit, you know, we were real down on the Rams as you know, the public was real down on the Rams. Now it seems like they're a little more confidence. Cincinnati has just been, I thought they would at least be a competitive bad team. It looks like they're one of the doormats of the league.
Yeah, now I'm starting to hear talk that people think Cincinnati's worse than Miami. So, I mean, you know how it goes in this league. I don't know if that's quite the case. It might be. They've just looked really awful.
And just before you talk about the line, it's 13, but is it possible, would the quarterback change to Ryan Finley even affect this line? Can you address that when you go over your numbers?
Yeah, I think it I think it will have an effect on the line. I'm seeing, like I said, I'm seeing 13 now, and 100% almost of the money coming in on the Rams. So, you know, as bad as the quarterback play, as bad as the entire team has been, it probably will have a small effect on the spread. So it's not going to be one of those touchdown type of spread, touchdown type of moves. But yeah, we could see some movement there on the line. But the total on this one is 48.5, and the under is getting played. So I think it kind of makes sense the way that the bettors are looking at the way the game flow is going to go. They see the Rams defense as, you know, now that the Rams defense had a good game against Atlanta, all of a sudden the Rams defense is really good again. Cincinnati can't score. So the anticipation here is the Rams are just going to win this game and Cincinnati's not going to score. They're going to cover it by a minimum of 2 touchdowns. That's the anticipation, which is funny. A lot of times when you have these big spreads, although the total's high, but a lot of times when you have a big spread and a low total, you want to combine the under with the dog or the favorite and the over, because generally if the dog covers those games, the game's going to be low scoring. But in this case, the public seems to like this game to go under and the Rams score, which means they're anticipating nothing coming out of Cincinnati.
Geek, when we talk about our preseason, season-long draft kit preview, when we talked about quarterbacks, we discussed Ryan Finley, and I think, I'll have to pull the clip, but we said around week 8, we anticipated a move to him, and we liked his tape. I liked his tape a lot. I showed it to you. You agreed. You said, why wasn't this guy drafted higher? Sometimes guys like Gardner Minshew slip. I think that if he gets an opportunity, it's going to ignite this offense a little bit. Last week, when you talk about, someone's going to have to score in Cincinnati. So Alex Erickson came alive, had 100 yards last week. I know these are not the type of players you typically go to, but that really affected the other Cincinnati wide receivers. I'm interested more for you to talk about the Cincinnati side first.
I just don't think there's anything here from the Cincinnati side that we want to mess with at all.
Even in a high under over?
No, because all of the points are going to the Rams here. You're looking at the total, but you're not actually looking at the team total for Cincinnati, which would be sub 17. I'm not going to do this math.
Yeah, it's about 17.
I try to do it in my head. You throw me on the spot. So, it's 17 points, and that seems like a stretch. Listen, what we saw was, and I love this, what we saw was that the Rams defense we saw earlier in the season that wasn't that good was actually more of the anomaly than the reality. I think the Rams defense coming into the season was one that you were drafting top 4 or 5 in your season-long draft for a reason. You looked at the talent. You looked at Aaron Donald in that defensive line. You looked at some of the players in the secondary. Now they've got Jalen Ramsey in there. They got rid of who I thought was a liability in Marcus Peters. Aqib Talib gone, whatever. They replaced him. So this Rams defense is good. That's what it comes down to. They're a good team. We just saw them literally dismantle a Falcons team that had been scoring at will, and they were at home in a dome in a situation where you would expect them to have success. So what that tells me is that defense is good. The Cincinnati Bengals offense is bad, even with the rookie out there. As a matter of fact, more so with the rookie out there. You can't expect a guy like that to come out in a hostile environment against a quality defense and have this great game. You're going to be overwhelmed as a rookie. So I don't care all the talent in the world. Who are these rookie quarterbacks that are having all of this success, especially on a team like the Bengals that have no offensive line and have all kinds of other problems going on? So hell no. I agree with betting the under. I think 13 points is more than a fair spread. As a matter of fact, I'd be on the Rams side of this. I'm not convinced that the Bengals are going to be able to score here. And on the Rams team, I wanted to be interested in TG2, but man, it's hard to be interested in Gurley in any situation right now. I like him more, I guess, if Malcolm Brown doesn't play. But
he looked good in that. Gurley made a wide receiver style catch over his shoulder last week. That really impressed me.
It's not that; it's the volume. Like Darrell Henderson, who everybody laughed at me for saying was playable last week, he wound up getting 11 touches. He wound up getting some targets in the passing game. Now, I don't know if that was because it was a blowout, and he didn't do shit with those. In fairness, but, he was playable and he got a bunch of looks. So they're just not going to give Gurley the volume that we want. Only one reception, only one target last week. Now, this game doesn't project any different. It projects as a smash game for the Rams. That doesn't mean that Gurley can't smash in 3 goal line touches. It could happen, but Henderson could take 1 or 2 of them. I don't want to pay elite running back salary for Todd Gurley, even in an elite spot outside of maybe taking some shots. The same thing with Cooper Kupp. I want these expensive wide receivers in games where his team is going to be forced to throw. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen here. I think the Rams are going to dominate this game with their defense, and it's going to be very difficult to know where the touchdowns are going to come from in this spot. So I have some concerns there overall, even though the Rams have a great team total. John, team total, what, like 28?
The Rams, yeah. So it would be a little bit more than that. It'd be like 30.
24 is 6.5. Yeah, you want me to do that on the spot? I tried to
probably
put
like 30 and a half, 17 and a half, something like that. So
there we go. So nothing exciting here. Moving along.
We have a little bit of breaking news. Nothing too major, but interesting. It does have some fantasy ramifications. The Cardinals have signed Alfred Morris. Now, to me, it's not like, okay, Alfred Morris is fantasy significant, hasn't been in so years, but this to me really signals that David Johnson is probably a little bit more banged up than we even realized. Further pushing Chase Edmonds up the board, I think. And it says they also brought in Jay Ajayi for a workout. They may sign both of these guys. They've already signed Morris.
Could they trade David Johnson? Could that be in the works?
I don't think so. I
Or
don't.
wait until after they make the trade to bring those guys in.
I mean, David Johnson's hurt. I mean, who's going to trade for an injured 28-year-old running back with massive mileage? I just, again, I think you just, again, my opinion would be that he's injured to the point where he's not playable, and then you need depth behind Chase Edmonds. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I think Edmonds is a lock button play, as you guys like to say. He proved last week that he's probably one of the 10 best running backs in the league. I mean, he looked amazing.
He looked great. I don't know about lock button this week. Again, that matchup is a little bit tricky, but if he's full blast starting, even at 5,800, even against a quality defense, we'll have to have some sniffs of him. If it's a 50-50 scenario, though, not as interested, but I do think that we're going to get a lot of goodness out of Chase Edmonds if he's that starter longer term. Edmonds. Let me look at the game here. I forget what the hell.
Yeah, a local guy too. I believe he went to not Rutgers. He went to Fordham.
Fordham, yeah.
Fordham in the Bronx.
Patriot League.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, no, I'm a fan of Chase Edmonds. I have him in a bunch of dynasty leagues. I've been waiting to. It's like when you have that new sports card, you're waiting to unleash it on a nice, beautiful, sunny day, and I hear the engine crackling. And last week I got my first opportunity, and it went well.
Yeah, it went well against me.
That's right. It was against you, which made it even more pleasurable.
That wasn't fun. It always sucks when I score the second most points in the league. Right. And I take the L.
Well, that's why we do, John. In one of our bigger leagues, we have is that we also play against the median score, so to avoid things like that. So you get 2 wins or 2 losses or 1-1 for the week, one against your opponent and one against the top 6 get a win, the bottom 6 get a loss. We definitely advise playing season long like that. All right, boys, moving along. Tampa. Back off the bye. Finally, I can get Chris Godwin back in my lineup. The wide receiver 1 goes to Tennessee. Tennessee is laying points, 2.5, total of 46.5. John, I'm interested in this game from a betting perspective. I think the Tampa's getting disrespected again.
Laying the 2.5, the public kind of agrees with you. Well, getting the 2.5 on Tampa's perspective, the public agrees with you. They are 65% of the money and 55% of the tickets going on the Tampa side. Tennessee, I think, got a little lucky last week to get out of that game alive. If we get to the total, it's 46, and all the money coming in on the over. So the anticipation here, I guess, there was a lot of talk of how good this Tennessee defense was. I know that was the talk going into week 1 when they played Cleveland. Like, boy, this Tennessee defense is really good. That's why they shut down Cleveland. Now, maybe not so good. So Tampa's offense, getting a ton of respect. We see the Rams starting to play better, and you saw what Tampa did to the Rams. So, I don't know. Tennessee's one of those teams where I feel like they can pitch a shutout or give up 40 points. So a little confusing there, but the public certainly actually did. If I said the over, the public actually likes the under on this one, but 94%. So I apologize. 46 is the total, and the under is 94%.
So is it 46 or 46.5? Because for those watching our video cast, I have it up on the screen.
It could be 46.5, depending. Yeah, just what I'm looking at, and we always talk about juice. It's actually juiced a little bit, so some places are going to have it 46 with extra juice on that, but 46.5 in some spots. And
for those of you who are not sure what the term juice means, you should check out. I'm doing a podcast with John. We're doing it. It looks like on Saturdays. We've been putting it out. Our first one, Beat the Bookie, is a sports wagering 101. I certainly advise you check that out. A great 45 minutes of all the need to knows and biggest mistakes that beginner and intermediate gamblers make, and sometimes even the pros, some mistakes. So we go over just some basic terminology. Great podcast to check out. Shameless plug right there. Geek, this game is one that I'm looking to for DFS. I don't know. This is the one that stuck out for me. I really love playing Chris Godwin just every week. We were talking about how he would take the league by storm this year. We had no idea it would be this dominant. Talk about all the Tampa goodness. Are you glad to have them back? And is OJ Howard ever going to break out of this funk. Like, what do we do with OJ Howard, or is he just an ignore?
No. Orenthal James Howard is an ignore.
I said I made a joke, John, that this OJ is killing more fantasy owners than the real OJ.
Has enough time to ask for that joke?
I told you to ignore him in the
Too soon.
preseason. You didn't listen to me. You laughed at me. You thought I was a fish. I said, don't play this guy.
You got this one
I
right.
was a fish. I said, all right, do what you got to do. Listen, there's some goodness here. What I love about Tampa, look at the DVP with the Bucks. This is the best team for fantasy scoring predictability. And I'm sure if I had the Statsational model open in front of me, and damn it, I do, let me see if it's for this week. Let me see if it's for this. Come on. Fuck, it's last week's. Well, I'm sure if I had it open properly in front of me, you would see this beautiful thing where Tampa stops the run and forces teams to throw. Okay, that's what they do. You can't run on these guys, but you could throw on them voluminously. Right?
That was an SAT word on my SAT. I remember that one.
There it is. So I can't even say it. But you know what I can say? Corey effing Davis, 7 targets, 6 receptions, 80 yards, got the tutty, 20 fantasy points, super cheap. AJ Brown, back relevant, 8 targets last week. Beautiful stuff. Have you seen AJ Brown? He looks like he's a fucking beast. He's athletic. He's big. He looks good. I love this kid.
Yeah, he actually was the better receiver of the two with him and DK Metcalf in college. They were on the same team. And AJ Brown stood out. He was our wide receiver 1 in our pre-draft rankings, if you remember, and we had to knock him down based on landing spot.
And yeah, it was just, who's Mariota sucks. But now they have an actual somewhat middle of the road NFL quarterback in Ryan Tannehill at the helm for Tennessee. I love Tannehill. I love his pass catching weapons. I don't think it's going to be chalk. I don't think everybody's going to be on it because still there's a little bit of nausea that you get when you try to, whenever Tennessee players, the Titans, it gives my stomach a little sickness. But that nauseous feeling is actually good for DFS purposes because it keeps the ownership down, right? So you want to target passing games against the Bucks because you can't run against them, right? On the flip side, yes, Godwin with Tampa, we don't know. Man, fucking Winston could get benched this game. I don't know what the hell's going on with this dude. They score a lot of points though, so that's great. But I mean,
well, the good news is there's no one really behind him. Blaine Gabbert I think he's on IR, so there's really nobody behind Winston of note where they would get any value out of benching him.
Yeah, just going to keep rolling Winston out there. His price is still pretty cheap, and again, with the Bucks, they don't have a whole lot going on at the running back position. Ronald Jones Jr. and Peyton Barber, who's the number 1? I don't fucking know. So they're both like the same. So they're going to continue to throw. There's a lot of potential goodness here. This does feel game stackable to me, where I do either 1-1 or 2-1 stacks here, where I try to pair up Tannehill with 1 or 2 of his guys and maybe Godwin or even Mike Evans. For a contrarian approach, Evans' pricing comes down a little bit. He's clearly, the second best option for this Bucks team, and his salaries come down to reflect that. But, Evans is still capable of 40 and 50-point games. He's done it this year. He hasn't been bad. It's just that Godwin's been so amazing, and Evans, of course, tends to get blanked out by any kind of good quality cornerback play. So I like this game from a fantasy point of view. I think 46.5 seems fair. I think it'll go higher scoring. I think this is a new Tennessee team with an actual quarterback that's going to try to move the football through the air. So I think some of that slowness that causes their games to be so low scoring all the time may go the way of, may go out the window here, and they may kind of run a more efficient NFL offense that's not just going to be, smash the line, punt. We'll see.
John, Seattle going to Atlanta. Another one of our 10 bottom 5 teams, right? We have about 10 teams that we think are in the bottom 5 at this point. We've said it a lot. Does this line reflect no Matt Ryan? Has he been ruled out? They're getting 3.5 at home, total 53.5. Nice total there. Talk to me a little bit about if the Matt Ryan factor in the line here. Who is their backup? Is it Matt Schaub?
I'm not. No, it's
Matty
not Schwab.
Yeah, it's Matty
Is
Schwab.
it Schwab?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Doesn't it seem like he was like Michael Vick's backup in Atlanta?
He's been there for a while. He probably bounced around and then is back in Atlanta. He had to. shot. Well, what was he at Houston? And
yeah, I mean,
he made some stops.
There was a time where we were drafting him in like the 7th or 8th round of season long because that was a loaded Houston team at the time. All right, back to does this line? What do you think this line reflects? I mean, Matt Ryan to me would make a major difference in this.
Yeah, I'm not sure yet because I don't think the in a lot of places don't have this one up. So Matt Ryan's certainly going to be a huge difference in this game. If it's Matt Ryan, I don't think he's going to play from everything I heard this morning, at least. I'm just
I'm looking for it while I'm talking.
Looking at it myself right now.
I'm just over here trying to smash the Seattle side here before this line moves. So you guys keep.
I think what you're going to see, it's probably about a 4. It's probably about a 4 point. We're looking at 4 points more. So I think that 3.5 is probably the Matt Ryan line, and I think we're looking at closer to a 7.5 without a Ryan. I'm not sure where you could get the 3.5. Yeah, if you can get it. See, I don't know if you can get that in a lot of places right now. 3.5. So yeah, if you could, I would probably jump on Seattle there if you have an out that has that, because I think this goes higher with Ryan out. But like I said, I think most places probably aren't offering you that game at all.
I may or may not be checking my local book right now as we're talking to see if it's on there. So
I'm literally on it myself, and the game is not on there.
Yeah,
buddy.
it's going to be tough to find that line. So we're kind of going blind, but we do know the total. The total is going to be pretty high in this game, regardless, just because of the fact that the Atlanta defense is pretty bad. I think it comes probably down to 50-ish without Matt Ryan. Maybe 51, something like that. So it'll still be a high total. Seattle's going to be in play here from a DFS standpoint, no matter who the quarterback is. And I think Atlanta, obviously, when you've got Ryan in there, I think both sides of this game become very stackable. But I'm feeling pretty good from what I heard this morning. We won't see Ryan in this game.
Hey, Geek, before I get you into the details of this game, I just want to just go in reverse for a second. We actually had a pretty good comment. I haven't put too many of them up on the board, but someone asked if they could play Jonnu Smith as a cheap tight end if Delaney sits. I kind of like that. Is that even possible, or is it just pass on to the next?
No. Play good tight ends that get targets. Don't play that guy.
Okay, fair enough. All right, talk about the there was a big move from a fantasy perspective in Atlanta today. Mohamed Sanu, even though not a thunderous fantasy player, he certainly has been affecting Calvin Ridley's target share. Do you expect Calvin Ridley and Julio, for that matter, to see a major bump in production, assuming Matt Ryan's health?
I think their floor comes up a little bit, and that's a beautiful thing. It's long been awaited and long been necessary. So the floors for both Julio, Hooper, and Calvin Ridley especially come up a little bit, because Sanu, for all the mediocrity that he has produced in his role on the Falcons offense, is still commanding 4 to 7 targets every single game. And so, there may be some other slot guy that comes in, but you'd have to expect that those will be distributed evenly to the other 3 guys. So give everybody about a 1 to 1.25 targets more per game than they've been getting. That's a nice, 10 to 15% floor boost for pretty much all of the players connected to Matt Ryan when he plays. All of that's irrelevant in a week where it's going to be Matty Schwizzles, who is the ageless one, still just 38 years young.
Yeah, I feel like he should be like 58. You're right.
I know. He's super, super bald.
We're talking about,
he looks like an old man, but he's only 38 years old.
We're talking about Matt Schaub, for those of you who are
Matty Schwizzle.
Yeah. On the Seattle side, MVP. Well, actually, before we go there, Atlanta, the running backs, Devontae Freeman, who got lifted like Darth Vader lifted that general in the first one. And when he was disobedient, you remember that scene where he just picked him up and, like with the 2 fingers and held him like a choke. I mean, that's what it looked like when Aaron Donald held Devonta Freeman up. That was, is he going to be, he was off, he was ejected from that game, but he's been playing well lately. Are any of these running backs usable to you?
That played out like a scene from Game of Thrones when
it was
when the Mountain grabbed the Viper and just picked him up and smashed his face with his bare hand. You know what I mean? Like, the Viper was pretty badass until he ran into the Mountain. So, which running back in this game do I love? I love Chris Carson.
Right.
Man, Chris Carson. Hello. 22 carries. Now, even last week in a bad matchup, and we said it was a bad matchup, and it was a bad game for him, but he got 21 carries. He got 3 receptions, didn't do much with those receptions. So Chris Carson, another 25 touches this week. That is a beautiful thing. Devonta Freeman, never been my guy. Not going to be my guy. I like that Judge Ito is out for Atlanta. If he is out, he's entered the concussion protocol. So if Smith is definitely out, and I can count on more goodness from Freeman, the problem is I'm not sure I can rely on Atlanta to throw to Freeman in a come-from-behind situation. I think they might, but with Matty Schwizzles behind the helm, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do. I think Freeman can have a good game, but I think there's a little bit of risk there. He's going to be in my pool because I think maybe Schwab might be more prone to throwing checkdowns to his running back. I don't know. And as long as Judge Ito isn't in the game, I like that volume. As far as the passing games go, good luck figuring out the Seattle.
How about Tyler Lockett? He's every week almost.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett's your best guy, but he's not getting enough volume to justify 7K. I'm not going to play Tyler Lockett over some other options that you. Godwin is 7,100. Like just as a comparator on DraftKings, like, do you want Lockett or do you want Chris Godwin?
Right. I mean, just Lockett seems to, again, on the low.
Great, but I mean, like, he's just overpriced.
Right. Okay. You're saying it's going to be hard for him to hit value. I understand.
Yeah. Well, because who's he competing with? Like, I can get Godwin for 100 more. I can get Cooper Kupp in that price range, or I can squeeze a little more out for Michael Thomas or DeAndre Hopkins. Or it's just too expensive. I can get other names for cheaper that I think are just as good. So, yeah, he's fine, but he's not getting volume. With Lockett, you're hoping for a touchdown because he's only going to get 6 targets or 7 targets ever. Or at least that's the most that I've seen. So I like more volume for guys who I'm paying that kind of money for. Across the board, this game, I don't know. I just enabled all the players, so I totally don't have this game up anyway. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Seattle, Atlanta. Hooper is the only tight end. Seattle doesn't have a tight end right now. So Hooper's of interest. He caught a touchdown from Matty Schwizzles last week, but again,
it was a garbage time touchdown, but as we said last week, he just gets his every single week.
Yeah, it saved my ass a little bit. And without Sanu there, I think the guy who should benefit the most is Hooper because they're both operating in the middle of the field.
John, if you watched the LA Chargers game like I did last week, that was one of the most painful endings in the world with offsides. No, bring it back. Oh, it's a fumble. Oh, I mean, it just literally was so Chargers. This week, they're going into Chicago, who, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do about Mitch Trubisky. It's, I'm not going to pile on. It's been said a million times. Chicago is 4.5-point favorites, a low under over of 40.5 right now. Before you even get into the betting side, I'm just curious of your analysis. I mean, you're seeing what everyone else is seeing, right? Like Mitch Trubisky is just sinking this offense completely. And what should they do? What are they going to do?
I don't know what they can do other than look outside of the organization. Chase Daniels is obviously not the answer.
No.
So right now, I don't know what I saw a quote earlier. I guess someone had asked Nagy about why they're just not running the ball. I mean, Montgomery, I don't know what you thought of Montgomery before the season. I mean, the little bit of tape I watched on him, I thought he looked really, really good. And they're just not using him. Yeah, just not using him. So, I mean, I don't know when you have a quarterback who's as inaccurate as he is, and he is just amazingly inaccurate right now. I mean, guys wide open. It's tough to watch how you don't at least try to run the ball. And I know it's easy for us to say when we sit here because I know the other teams are playing against the run. But man, I would be trying something. Get Tariq Cohen in some space, just little quick throws that you could do something other than what they're doing. I'm not an NFL coach, but it doesn't look like they're trying something new right now, and they have to.
Yeah, I always try to assume rational coaching, but if I were the Bears, I'd get on the phone with San Francisco and see if either CJ Beathard or Nick Mullins was available. At least bring them in and see what you got. I liked both of those guys last year. I thought, Nick Mullins is definitely an NFL starter level. He came in, was able to produce right away. I know Geek is not a fan of those guys. John, talk to me about where the money's going on this one. These are two teams that it just like anything can happen. It would just, I would take the points because I have no faith in either team. I'd probably stay away. What's the public? What are the sharps doing?
Yeah, so the public, everyone seems to be on the Chargers. I think that's for obvious reasons because the Bears have just looked so pitiful. And it happens often when a team is favored and just puts a performance on like that, where the public really just wants to jump off. And obviously the Chargers should have won that game last week. I had them. Luckily, I waited right before game time, and I got that game at +3, so it was only a push. It didn't cost me anything, but really painful way to not win a game, that's for sure. 76% of the money, like I said, is on the Chargers. Most of those tickets are also on the Chargers. The game is, as most of these Bear games have been, really low total, 40, and the money is actually coming in on the under 60%. So even at the 40, the public's not scared of it because they just don't think the Bears can score.
Geek, we said it in the preseason. We warned people in their season-long leagues, do not draft Melvin Gordon. We said we just did not like him this year. My evaluation was that Eckler was at least equal, if not a better running back, and that he was the future. That has become gruesomely obvious. I've said it on this podcast that I think Eckler is at least insulated by his pass catching prowess. Last week he had another monster week. Are you feeling good, even with Melvin Gordon there, enough to play Eckler? And then talk to me if you finally, well, actually, you've been pretty good about Allen Robinson. He is an elite wide receiver one that just can't find a good quarterback, can he?
Man, it's a shame. You look at some of these careers, like you go from Blake Bortles to Mitch Trubisky.
Wait, hold on one second. You start Allen Robinson's college career, and that was with Christian Hackenberg.
There you go. So, I mean, he's had the who's who of disappointing quarterbacks throughout his career. But yeah, he's been great. I mean, Allen Robinson's the only game in town for this offense. That helps. 16 targets last week. That helps. 9 targets the week before. So he's a PPR machine. He's at a 13 target week. This is a really interesting game because the salary for Trubisky is really low, like under 5K on Draftkings at this point, almost minimum for quarterbacks on Fanduel or under 7K. So like his salary has come down. We know he sucks, but he'll also win you a milli maker once in a while. Like, he's that kind of quarterback that all of a sudden will have a good game. So it's certainly not impossible. Chargers, I don't like anything really to do with the Chargers here. Maybe Hunter Henry because it's been pretty good going, thrown to the tight end against Chicago this season, but not a whole lot to like on the Chargers offense facing a really strong overall Chicago defense. Although, again, we're now learning not the best defense in the league anymore.
They're still pretty good, man.
They're very good, not the best.
They're not prohibitive to playing your fantasy players against.
They're not San Francisco where don't play players against those guys. They're not New England where it's like don't play anybody. Don't, right? This is a team where you're like, well, Lance Murray had a pretty big game against these guys last week.
Hicks is on the IR now, and I think that they with him out, that they kind of there was a little chink in the armor there. So
Akeem Hicks, best run stopper in the league. So that made a massive difference in their run defense.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put a chink in the armor, because sometimes it's like defense is like a system. And even just by removing one piece of that system, the whole system doesn't work. It's like trying to run a marathon with a sprained toe. It's like you can do it, but when the toe is aching, you just don't run the same way.
Well, if you go back to those great Raven defenses and how great Ray Lewis was, there was a stretch there where he wasn't really performing really well, and that's when he didn't have those guys in the middle to kind of keep him clean, and he was able to run all over the field. And then when he didn't have guys up in front of him, they were able to take on all those blockers. Even Ray Lewis didn't look as good. So, like you said, it takes 11 guys. Sometimes not always the guy who makes all the tackles. In Hicks' case, he's pretty good player. But sometimes these great players in football, it's about the team that you're playing on, the system, and the guys around you more often than your ability sometimes. And
it's funny how
that same analogy, I was going to throw the Khalil Mack example. When you get the massive run stuffer, slash tackle stud out of the game in Hicks, what's going on is you have a mediocre player over there, and again, that's not keeping Khalil Mack as clean as he might want to be to do the things that he does really well. So, some teams focus around a superstar corner, for example. Their entire defense is predicated on I can just one-on-one it over here, and then you could do a lot of things. And when you lose that guy, like when Aqib Talib went down for the Rams, that kind of threw them off too, and their whole defense was kind of in disarray because Aqib Talib was supposed to be counted on as elite. And I do think that's why the Rams defense needed Jalen Ramsey and why they're going to be much better now. But yeah, in the case of there is a chink in the armor. And so, it is what it is. Does that mean that I think Melvin Gordon is going to have a great day rushing up the gut against the Bears this week? No, I don't think that. But I mean,
wait, Eckler though. Talk about Eckler.
Eckler is in the Danny Woodhead role. Eckler is he's getting the passing game work, and that's the lucrative work in the Chargers offense. We talk about this all the time. The lucrative role is not running up the gut for the Chargers. They have never produced good fantasy scores from running up the gut. The Chargers produce fantasy goodness by throwing to the running back, and they don't throw checkdowns the way you might see a checkdown go to someone like Marlon Mack or Nick Chubb. They run routes to the running back position that are designed to be big plays. That's one of the staples of this Chargers offense. They've been doing it for 15 years. The entirety of the Phillip Rivers era, this has been a staple of their offense. We can count on it. This is a polar difference from the other situation that we talked about this week, where we have a backup running back coming in for the Lions, where they refuse to throw to the running back, and they don't really have a role that produces fantasy points to that position. It's a polar opposite here, where this team does. And so Austin Eckler, can he be used? Yes. Did Melvin Gordon fumble on the goal line last week? And maybe they don't like him because
that was the craziest sequence. That whole sequence of plays, it almost made me hate football. Just like I can't spend like 45 minutes watching the end of the game. Just email me the result. I mean, it's
that was amazing. If you're rooting for one of the teams, they got the stop, the fumble. The worst part is you couldn't see the fumble. It's like, oh, I think you lost the football. You're like, oh my God, what am I watching, the Jets?
I love technology, but this is the point where technology interrupted the viewing experience, and that's for a whole nother. It's just make a call and that's it, and let's move on.
Yeah. All right. And getting back to this one, not a lot of goodness here. Let's just, because there's not a whole lot to like in this game.
How about Hunter Henry? I'm waiting for you to talk about him.
I said Hunter Henry, of all of the players on the Chargers, he's got such a high target volume. I love Hunter Henry, and the Bears defense has given up points to opposing tight ends. So if this is a place to go, I haven't looked at the entirety of the tight end position this week, or I'll look at it now, and it's really not looking so good. So, Hooper, backup quarterback, Waller priced up a little bit in a good spot. George Kittle, okay, priced up a little bit. We don't have as many options this week. There's a few guys that aren't on the list that have been there the last few weeks. So yeah, I think Hunter Henry's absolutely one of the names that we have to think about. It's crazy to me that he's same price as Zach Ertz. It's just a little crazy to me. But that's where we are today. Ertz is now down, and Hooper and Henry are pretty much the same shit. So that's interesting to see. But yes, Hunter Henry's in play. He's probably the only, I don't like the other pass catchers from the Chargers because there's too many of them.
In my hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, my other team, the New York Jets, fresh off a goose egg, coming to town this week. Jacksonville's laying just under the touchdown at 6, total 41.5. John, did you torture yourself and watch that whole game last night?
I did. I actually watched the entire thing.
Yeah, me too. I want to make the point that I loved how Bill Belichick challenged a call deep in the fourth quarter. It was like an 8-yard catch by Jamison Crowder, and he just said, "Hey, Jets, we're not going to give you even an 8-yard catch. We're going to make you review it."
Not only that, did you see when he was punting from like his own 30-something or from the Jets 30-something, and he was looking to get the 5 extra yards? The Jets declined it on the delay game, and then he just took an intentional offside penalty.
I was going to say that is like the best usage of the rules, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Patriots cheat." And they said, "Hey, listen, so you close the loophole." And I heard a really smart analyst get this point across today, and he said that if you're not making the rules, if it's someone else's rules and you're just exploiting them, that's not in bad taste. But if you're making the rules and then exploiting them, that's being a cheat. Like, for example, like when Amazon sees what products sell well and then makes their own products and pushes them up in the search and pushes the original business owner's products down. That's making the rules and cheating. Bill Belichick just takes advantage of the rules that the NFL puts in front of him.
Yeah, totally. They were talking about it on the game.
He is on the rules committee, but
yeah, but they were talking about it in the game where he goes over every official and he wants to know which officials call what penalty. He doesn't leave any stones unturned. So there's a reason he's probably the greatest coach of all time, and that's one of them. Although on another day we'll talk about why I think he was wrong in that Seattle game and he got lucky with that interception in the Super Bowl. But I'm not calling the timeout, but.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So
that's a whole nother story. But even the best make mistakes, and I'm always right. So I can
Jacksonville with Gardner Minshew. Okay, we're back. Mustache Mania has been on a little bit of a hold lately, but Gardner Minshew's looked all right. I think he really needs a huge game here to even consider keeping the job, as Nick Foles is starting to return to health a little bit. What are the bettors thinking? They have to be completely off the Jets after last night.
They are not. There's actually slightly more money. It's close to 50-50, slightly more of it coming in on the Jets plus the 6, which is a little surprising to me as well. And the tickets, so it's really the public coming in. I don't know that one. I almost had to take a double take at it and just make sure that was correct. But that's the data that I have on that. And on the total at 41.5 is pretty much split 50-50. So yeah. A bit confusing. I would say personally, that is one of those games where you kind of, as my experience says, it's one of the games I kind of want to look at is the Jets, because I love a team that just looks so awful and they're really not as bad as they looked. It was just one of those things where it starts to snowball. You're playing probably the best defense in the league right now. It's either them or San Francisco, and a guy in Belichick who was trying his hardest to get that shutout. He wanted the shit. He wants to prove a point. He wants this to be the greatest defensive team of all time, and he loves to kind of stick it to the Jets on top of that. So it was just one of those games that snowballed. The Jets aren't nearly as bad as that game showed. They'll perform a lot better here offensively this week. So
I mean, you saw the clip going around where Darnold was mic'd up saying, "I'm seeing ghosts." I mean, it looked like he was throwing the ghosts. I mean, I'm not joking when I say I literally could have gone out there and just thrown the ball how he was throwing it too, just throwing it into the crowd. I mean, it didn't look good. It was not a promising step for Darnold's growth here. And I know you could say, oh yeah, it was against him, but it's not going to get much easier for him against Jacksonville.
No, but they did a good job against the Dallas the week before, so we can't forget about that. Like, that game happened also. So
right.
All right. So
you own that skill once you've displayed it. I do agree with that.
So this will be a different game this week, and so the public is surprisingly on the Jets, but I would take a serious look. I wouldn't be totally turned off to the Jets just because of that performance last week.
Geek, I love Leonard Fournette. I know you love Leonard Fournette, and it's just he's having the healthy season that we knew he would have. He was a first-round pick in season-long fantasy drafts last year, fell to the third round this year because of the down season. He looks like he has found a way to work past those injuries. I love Leonard Fournette. Is he a high-owned guy at this point, or are people still skeptical on him?
No, he was the chalkiest running back this past week on the slate. By far, he continues to get massive volume, including last week. He continues to be allergic to scoring touchdowns, which is unfortunate, but that kind of thing eventually comes around. Fournette only 1 touchdown on the season, but he's producing an excellent fantasy season, and there's no reason to think he won't do this at home. Now, John, one thing is I like the over on this game, man. I think 41.5 points seems a little low to me. As long as Sam Darnold isn't now seeing ghosts every day, and if this isn't a long-term thing, he's never looked like he looked in that game before to me. That doesn't mean that he won't look like that every game going forward. It's certainly possible, but he's never looked that shell-shocked, and I think that's just something that this amazing Patriots defense can do to you. I said the same thing about the Rams after they played San Francisco and looked like Goff looked just as bad as what Sam Darnold looked yesterday. That, that defense, and Bill Belichick is good at this, and a young quarterback, and he's a little rusty still, and he's still a little neophyte, and, he's going to need more time to develop. But I like a lot of the pieces in this game. I like Le'Veon Bell. I like Leonard Fournette. This is why I'm thinking the over, because so many of the offensive pieces in this game are appealing to me. Shark, Anderson, Crowder, Westbrook, all appeal to me. No tight ends to speak of. So I like both running backs. I like all 4 of the wide receivers here. Yeah, that makes me like the game to score points because they just all have attractive, ceiling floor combinations. They all look good. I don't think either defense is particularly great.
The more you guys have talked about this game, the more I'm thinking I like the over. We all have this recency bias. Well, not we all, but I would say a lot of people have recency bias, including myself. It's hard not to, but I could see a situation where the wide receivers go nuts and we have a carnival-like atmosphere. So thank you both for convincing me there. Hopefully it pays off. All right, Cleveland going to take its chances, going to New England. New England is going to lay 13.5. I thought it would be more. The total is 46.5. John, take us through this one. I mean, just betting New England seems to be a profitable thing. I'm guessing Bill Belichick has got to be covering close to, it's got to be getting up there closer to 60% at this point.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around 60% off the top of my head. You've not lost money blindly betting the Brady-Belichick combo through their history, that's for sure. So fading New England has obviously not been very profitable, so you want to do it with care and make sure you have a good reason to do so. But like you said, this game is 13, 71% of the money coming in on New England, not a shocker there. The tickets kind of mirror that as well. The total on that game, let me try to find it here, is 46, and the under is getting a lot of play. I think with the performance that defense put in this week, you can understand why 85% of the money is going in on the under. I saw an interesting stat just a little while ago, actually, while we were on the air. If New England's offense had not scored, if they haven't scored a point or did not score a point yet this year, do you know what the Patriots record would be right now if their offense was unable to put a point on the board and only their defense was playing?
Just based on that, I'm going to say, they're currently 7-0.
Yes.
So I would say they would be 5-2. I'm just going to guess.
Well, that's crazy. That's like saying how much did that cost? Because hey, guess how much I got this for, and you just way undersell me. No, right. But they would be 3-3-1.
Okay.
Strictly with the defense scoring. If you just took their defensive points against what they've given up.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I just totally screwed up your guess what? Yeah, no, I yucked your yum this there.
It's okay, but it's like I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that where their defense is basically outscored their opponents in 3 games, and they've tied in 1 of them. So it's pretty remarkable.
So the correct setup would have been like, they'd be like 1-6, and then you would have come back and said that. It would have been
if we set it up ahead of time. Yeah,
not even set it up ahead of time. If I would have played along properly, I'm sorry, I screwed you up there, John.
No, it's like when you go, how much? Can you believe how much these shoes were? And you go, what, like $5? And you're like,
right, yeah.
They were 20.
You know what? Normally I'm pretty good like that, where I set up my partners in a way. Yeah, I totally screwed you up there. It's because I had the break to drink some water. And some of the feedback I see on some of these podcasts are they hate when people drink water. So I try to shut off the camera and turn off the volume as well. Geek, I like Baker Mayfield, believe it or not for DFS purposes, but I have a feeling when everyone is down on him against the toughest defense, I could see him actually putting up a number here. I like the Baker to Odell in a very low-owned DFS. I'm going to have one lineup where I have it. And now I know it's probably just taking a $5 bill and lighting it on fire, but I'm going to do it anyway.
No. Don't put the $5. Put that in the quarter game, my friend. Put that in the quarter game. Okay. Don't light up a $5. You can get a graphic made for this show for a $5 on Fiverr.com. It's a shame to waste it on that. Listen, what did I say before? Don't play players against the Patriots. Let's keep it simple. There's no reason to complicate DFS sometimes. This is a simple one. Don't use players against the Patriots. And as a matter of fact, if you want to make it even better, don't use players from the Patriots either. Make your life easy. You think you're going to figure out which of these wide receivers are going to do anything? You want to play Mohamed Sanu? Like you're going to think you figure out which of the 15 running backs they run out there every single week is going to be the guy? Screw that. Now, can I logically, potentially almost guarantee you that for for 5,100 on DraftKings, you can get between 12 to 14 fantasy points as an average from James White. Sure, but is that enough to win me a tournament? No. Now, I don't hate James White at 5,100, but that's the only play on the entire Patriots offense that I'm even mildly interested in. Edelman's too expensive for his role. The other wide receivers, who knows which one? Sanu is coming in now. He'll be playing maybe. I don't really trust a new player on any kind of Tom Brady offense. You're talking about Dorsett. I like him, but his price isn't quite cheap enough to make me. I'll play some Dorsett at 4,200 on DraftKings in fairness. But outside of that, am I playing Sony Michel? Not on DraftKings, not on Fanduel probably either. I think he got very lucky. Sony Michel can't get any yardage going. Even in the smashiest of smash games, this guy's getting 35 yards on 20 carries. At some point, they're going to stop giving Sony Michel the football. They're going to give up on him. And I'm glad that I traded away Sony Michel to a sucker in one of my dynasty.
Oh, too soon. Too soon. That sucked.
In one of my dynasty leagues, because this motherfucker, look at his lines. 19 attempts, 42 yards. 22 attempts, 80 yards. 17 attempts, 16 yards. 9 attempts, 11 yards. 21 attempts, 83 yards. These are smash games against terrible defenses. I'm not talking. Those numbers are coming against Washington, against the Giants, against the Jets, Miami. These teams suck. You should be smashing them for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns every week if you're Sony Michel. So something's off about that dude. I don't want to play him. And I get that he's coming off the big game, and that's going to increase his ownership. Makes me like him less.
Yeah.
No.
And how about Nick Chubb? Even in a tough matchup here, would you play Nick Chubb? I mean, he has literally been one of the best 3 or 4 running backs in the NFL.
No. Don't use players against the Patriots. You're not going to pay up for Nick Chubb against the Patriots. Just the same way I don't want to pay up for Christian McCaffrey against the 49ers. The defense is too good. So I want a guy for the same price with the same volume who's up against the bad team. And his name is Chris Carson.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. This will be one of the games that I'm definitely looking forward to see because I really still believe in Baker Mayfield, and I would like to see what he could do when his back is against the wall here. If he turns into Sam Darnold this week with throwing the picks, and it's really a bad scene. Hey, guys, this is we're going to take a little break here we wrapped up the main slate. This is a great opportunity to talk about DFS Army's Beat the Bookie tab. Geek, why don't you set John up a little bit so he could talk about the part of DFS Army where he reigns supreme, but give him a little setup of what exactly goes on there.
Well, we know what we do in Beat the Bookie. In Beat the Bookie, we're taking average Joes, we're giving them the tools to compete like pros, be it the domination station, our advanced analytics, our projection systems, our coaches' notes. That's it's funny when we get feedback from members and DFS Army, they say, I love the cheat sheet and I love the chat. What's a cheat sheet? It's the coach's notes. It's my notes. When I break down the game, you see it on my review pod every single Monday where I show you who I called out, who I liked, who I didn't like. You guys can watch it. You can see it. I'm an open book, right? People love the coaches. For NBA, it's even better. So we have a similar situation going on with Beat the Bookie. We have analytics. We have betting models. We have sharp numerical quantitative analysts that have created models to handicap various sports, college basketball, college football, cover everything. But you also get what is essentially the same thing as what we do in DFS Army. You get cheat sheets from someone like John, and you could talk about that, your picks, and also your breakdowns of why you're making the picks, and all of that great stuff. So, John, just give us a little bit about Beat the Bookie and what that's all about.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, last week the NFL was 5-1-1 for me, and just kind of one of the things that you'll be getting there, like you said, you're getting the games, and that's all good and well. But on top of getting the games, for those that listened, we talked about that Charger game. So I am giving my analysis on when we should be just waiting on these lines, like where we, often people, the way the old days, people used to get the newspaper. Now everyone just goes online. They look at the spreads on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whenever it is. And then they go, okay, I like this team, this team, this team, this team. And then they put the games in. Well, what I'm doing all week long, and the other guys as well, is we're monitoring the lines. We're trying to figure out, it's not going to be perfect, not going to be right every time, but I'm trying to figure out when I could get the best line. Just getting the best line is going to increase my percentage tremendously. And if you don't have a system, you don't even you pick games out of a hat. If you could just get the best line, you're going to be ahead of the game. So that's just part of what we're doing over there, which is advising you on when to wait on the line, when to take it absolutely at this moment, what number you should be waiting for, and then a whole big analysis. So not just the models that the other coaches have and I have, but the analysis behind it, when you should take the game, strategies, and some of the questions that you guys have are fantastic. I get a lot of questions from you guys, and hopefully I have a lot of answers that are worthwhile. And I think the people in there are learning quite a bit. So that's my goal, is to just get everyone smarter and learn a little bit more about this.
Right. And that's what John's basically saying, is he teaches process. And if you're someone that doesn't, some people just don't like to read all this stuff. John's also doing an amazing podcast called Beat the Bookie Podcast. It comes out on Saturdays. Look for it in the DFS Army YouTube page, and also look for it on the DFS Army, wherever you get your local whatever you get your podcast, whether it be iTunes. Yeah. Well, there's no more iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts now, and we're Podbean, wherever it is. And John goes into about a 35-40 minute tips. It's not like here's my picks of the week. That is certainly, he does give you some plays on the website, but anyone who just gives out picks and sells their picks, they're not doing it the right way. He teaches you process. We can't say it enough. We can't hammer you over the head enough. This is worth checking out. And John, give your promo code. If they go sign up for Beat the Bookie, they can get 20% off.
Yeah, if they use Statsational, they could get the 20% off. So if you go over there, Beat the Bookie, you see the website and the link on there if you're looking at this the video. And head on over there, get that discount. And like I said, like we've been saying, it's more for me. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not those guys who just give out picks are great salesmen. They're not great. They're not great at handicapping necessarily, but I like to think of myself more as an educator, and I come from an education background with my family. And so that's what I want to hopefully accomplish over there on Beat the Bookie.
I just want to say that if you can spell Statsational, you automatically deserve a 20% off.
Well, there it is. It's up on the screen right now.
It's just for the ability to spell that word.
It's STAT and then Sational, SATIONAL. And that's where you could also find them on Twitter. And at any point, if you want to sign up for DFS Army, you could either use my promo code of SEZ, SEZ, or Geek for his promo code, 20% off for life. Certainly go check out the site. Worth it.
I'm going to throw one more special or one more thing out there for anybody who's still with us. If you're currently a DFS Army subscriber, we have a promotion going where any DFS Army subscriber who signs up for superdraft.io using promo code ARMY will get a free month of DFS Army Beat the Bookie as well. So this is for current subscribers. You're one of our members. You're listening right now. You haven't signed up for Superdraft yet. Use our link, superdraft.io. We're going to drop it in the podcast for the live version. But if not, you can go to dfsarmy.com and click on that free offer button where you'll see it there. Go to superdraft.io. You sign up with promo code ARMY. You get a free month of Beat the Bookie service. And special for this pod, if you're not currently a DFS Army subscriber at all, you're not a current VIP member, but you just enjoy the pod, you can sign up at superdraft.io with promo code ARMY. And we'll do a free month of DFS Army and a free month of Beat the Bookie for you. So you'll get the full Monty. And then you figure out, do I want to be a sports gambler, or do I want to be a DFSer, or do I want to be both?
You want to be both. All right. For at Fantasy Football Geek and at Statsational, I am at Alan Seslowski, a.k.a. Season Long Sez. Boys, this is always one of my favorite hour and a halves of the week. I love hanging with you. John, I will see you again later on this week as we do the Beat the Bookie Actionable Tips pod. And Mr. Geek, hopefully you will come back and join us for our NBA Weekly Pod, which we're doing now on Mondays. We just put out our third podcast. Basketball season is here, people, and we're doing season-long pods. If there's anything we missed, any players we missed, hit us on Twitter. All right, other than that, boys, may all your players' ACLs stay healthy. Goodbye.
Take care.